What is up, y'all, and welcome to the WWE 2K modding introduction. Understanding the basics of modding. This is for anyone who's just downloaded 2K on PC and wants to learn how to mod. Now this is gonna work for 2K23 and up, so if you could be watching this in 2K24, with 2K25, this all should work. The tools have pretty much been solidified since 2K has changed their file process from 2K19 over to 2K22. So if you're watching this, whenever you're watching this should be relevant, and if it's not, I will leave a link below to an updated video guide to explain what the basics are. So let's get right into it. The tools that you need to mod your game are going to be one of CakeTools, Meta, and Sound Editor. Quick run through of CakeTools is pretty much the game files are read by Cake. That's where your mods are. Essentially, you're baking modded cakes, allowing the game to read what's in there. If you look in your 2K directory, you'll see there's a lot of cake files. Pretty much what CakeTools does. CakeTools allows you to open those cake files, and CakeTools also allows you to bake those cake files. So none of this runs without those cakes. So CakeTools is necessary to modding. And another thing too, CakeTools can only replace. CakeTools is not, at this point in time, CakeTools does not allow you to add slots, doesn't allow you to add things, it allows you to replace. And another thing about replacing things, it has to be identical to what it's in the game. So if you look into the cake folder, if you're trying to replace a character, it has to be the same exact name and file structure, or the game will not read those cakes or the changes in the game. All right, and the term we use is baking, and I'm going to do a separate video on how to bake later, so make sure you subscribe and follow along this series so you know how to bake and how to structure your files, and that's going to be in the next video. All right, now the next tool that we're going to be needing is Meta. Meta is team discovery. It is a paid tool currently, and what this allows you to do is full access to the game, truly define how to play the game. Now this Meta allows you to add slots. Meta allows you to do a lot of things. I'm going to have a separate video just on what you can actually do with Meta, and it's a lot. You can add slots, you can add wrestlers to new slots, you can add GFX and Trons to new slots, you can add renders, you can add movies into the custom entrance name list, you can add names. Like, there's so many things that you can do with Meta, and it is a paid tool. It's only $5 on Team Discovery, and by contributing to it, you are continuing the advances that Meta has of why you should support it. And also the third tool you're going to need is Sound Editor. Sound Editor is what you use to change sounds in the game, musics and things like that. This is where your call names and announcers, sound files, which we'll go into in a later video, but I'm just going to give you a brief introduction. So these are the three tools that you will need to modding. You can mod without Meta but using CakeTools, but remember what I said before, you are only limited to replacing and not adding. Meta allows you to add and really unlocks the full potential of the game. Currently, at the time of this recording, 2K did a recent patch a few months ago, trying to block modding. So now to launch the game, you have to use a program called Mod Launcher. It's simple drag and drop that's in your game directory, and it should work. It's not really a tool, but it's really a launcher to launch your game with the mods that we will need in the continuation of the 2K series. Now, the next section we're going to go into is file types. So there are a lot of file types in the game. As you can see in your 2K directory, there are cake files, which this is what the game reads, and this is where pretty much all the files are located. Now, essentially, cake files are baked folders that include all the files that are in the game, and this is what the game reads as what should be allowed into the game currently right now. For 2K23, Cake 60 is where a lot of the updated stuff are going, like DLC stuff, patches and updates. That's where a lot of the stuff is going. So if you're looking to extract things that you need, make sure you check 60 first. Now the next file type we're going to be talking about is DDS. Now this is where pretty much all the images and renders are from. If you look inside CakeTools, you'll see that they are in .text files, but once you export them, they are .dds. Now these are what games reads as the renders and images in the game. It's pretty self-explanatory. We'll probably do a video on how to change renders as well if you don't know how to do that, but remember, images, renders, these are what the .dds file types. Now for movies, any like images that are videos, this is all .bk2 files. All right, .bk2 files. And if you have an MP4 video, it needs to be converted with Rad Video Tools, which can be downloaded through this link below here. But basically this is what the game reads as movie files. Now the next file is .wem. .wem is the audio files that the game reads, and this is all with Sound Editor. It has its own tool where you can convert MP3s and .waves into .wem files. It's pretty self-explanatory, so no need to go into that, but we'll do a separate video too if you don't know how to convert sounds or do anything with sounds. But that is the video there. Now the last and final, not the last and final, but the last one is JSFBs. Now JSFBs is kind of what runs the whole thing, and this is what Meta allows you to edit, is these JSFBs. There's a lot of files in the game that have JSFBs, like your character mapping JSFB, your roster table .jsfbs, your face detectors .jsfbs. Like, these are the things that control pretty much all the slots and all the things that are included in the game, and Meta allows you to one, open these and export them as JSON so you can and edit them. So JSFBs is kind of like the most important piece of them all. Now I want to move into wrestler IDs and wrestler slots. So I'm gonna leave a link below to a spreadsheet by Nyan, who gives you a breakdown on what wrestler slot IDs are. Basically every wrestler has a slot in the game, which is their ID, and then there's a slot ID. Basically all you need to really know is that there's slots and there's unused slots. There's empty slots, and there's slots that have been removed, as like people who are not in the game anymore, like Sasha Banks. Basically every wrestler has a slot. There's also slots that have like people from my GM and jobbers and people from my rides, which you can actually replace wrestlers and put them on those slots. In Meta, it's a lot easier to do, like I said before, because you're able to add things, and but with CakeTools you're only allowed to replace. But basically just know that there's wrestler IDs and then there's slot IDs. The wrestler IDs is what holds all the things, and there's also empty slots which you can put wrestlers on, which you pretty much only really allowed to do with Meta. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is the mod structure itself. So if you actually look in, if you download a mod, you'll notice that when you open the folder, you're going to see a default attire and base model. So this is kind of how the breakdown of what a mod actually is, what's in the mod. So each mod, like each folder, is going to have a .mdl, a .mtls, and sometimes a .ctg. Make sure they have included all three in those base models. Basically the base model is the model. If you know anything about Blender and textures, that's that. And then the default attires is what's on the model itself. Again, it's the same thing with the MDL.mtls, but for attires there's a YCL, and there's a HPL. So some mods usually include all this, some have more, but most of the time it's HPL, MDL, MTLS, and .YCL. Yeah, so that's pretty much the mod structure. You'll learn more about this when you download more mods to see. And notice how like this wrestler is for Drew McIntyre. Whatever mod that you have, it's gonna be like named something that's usually in the game, and that's what I mean when I'm saying like you have to for CakeTools, it has to be identical to what the file is in the game to allow you to replace that. All right. Now with Meta, it doesn't really matter what this name is, because you can just link it and map it yourself, which I'll show in the future. If you don't know what I mean, don't worry about that. I'm just letting you know for future reference. CakeTools, it has to be identical to what's in the game for it to work. Meta, you can name it whatever you want, but the base model and stuff is still the same thing. Every mod needs to have a base model, MDL and MTLS, because all the model, the data, the information is in the .mdl and the MTLS. So make sure all your mods include those two things. And if you download a mod that doesn't include those things, it means the mod is replacing a base attire that's in the game. So sometimes mods have alt attires and things like that. So if they're missing certain files, it's meaning because it's only replacing what's already in the game. If it has everything, it's usually because you can add this to a new slot and things like that. Now, important things you need to know, I already mentioned this before, but have Nyan's breakdown, which kind of shows you all the slots. Use this as your guide so you know what's what in the game. Also too, there is a Waysdead port library that have been ports meaning ported from last games to 2K23 and beyond, so make sure you check that out. I'll leave a link below to that too, from pretty much all past games. And another thing I want to know, if you're just getting into modding, the best thing you can do is stay organized. Download your folders into a mod, like when you download things, keep them all organized so you know what's what. I like to separate my things from arenas, characters, belts, renders, all that jazz. And kind of the same thing is take notes. You don't want to be in a situation where you added or replaced something and you do not know what's actually you replaced or anything like that. Make sure you keep notes and backups of all your stuff, especially your save data. Save data is super important when you're modding. You don't want the game to be syncing with Steam, so make sure you turn off sync for your save data, and also keep backups and take notes. Yeah, so this is the very first video of the modding introduction and basic understanding of modding. You should be ready to go now to start modding and start watching some tutorials. If things don't make sense, make sure you watch this video over just so you can see all you need to know is how to mod in this game. So thanks for watching, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.